I'm gonna make movies, Heather. Isn't that what we're here to do? Let's make some movies.
I think it's about time we get into the big one. The one that started it all, that started the big trend. Yeah, it wasn't the first found footage movie, but it was the found footage movie that launched the genre, that changed the industry, that changed everything. And it was the one that scared the pants off the most people in the world. I mean, let's face it, when this movie launched, people were terrified. I was terrified in a good way. I remember when this launched, everything leading up to it was just bringing the pressure, bringing the tension, so that when we finally sat down in theaters to watch, we were primed and ready to just soak it up, and it didn't disappoint at all. If sometimes you get like expectations built up and you're only going to be disappointed. This didn't happen with this movie. In fact, it went exactly the opposite way. Of course, today on the Found Footage broadcast, I'm talking about the Blair Witch Project, 1999. What a gem. So I'm going to talk about the experience that led up to this movie to give you some context of just what it was like for me and for the people I knew around me. This was not like a found footage fanatic, just niche moment. This was a cultural moment across the board. I can't wait to dig into how it affected people and just all the amazing stuff that's surrounding this movie. If you're a subscriber to this channel, then you are a member of the cult of the movie god. Thank you, my found footage fanatics. Roll the intro. Here we go. Blair Witch Project, 1999. Okay, so where to begin? You'd think I'd planned a little better? No, it's not my style. I guess let's start at the beginning, at the impact level. The Blair Witch Project is often considered the greatest of all time, even though a lot of people these days will watch it and kind of go, that was okay. And the reason for that was because of how it was set up and what was going on in 1999 in the culture. I mean, keep in mind, in 1999, we didn't really have reality TV yet. Like, Survivor wasn't on yet. Big Brother wasn't on yet. The Real Housewives or whatever wasn't on yet. It was a simpler time in many ways. And yeah, there had been found footage movies in the past. There had been for a while. I mean, there's Cannibal Holocaust I'll have to make a video on at some point. Punishment Park. Punishment Park was haunting.
They made their choice.
I will have to make a video about that when my heart can take it. But, and of course there's stuff that found footage fanatics talk about all the time that we just love. The McPherson tape, The Last Broadcast. Yes, these are, legends that all existed before the Blair Witch Project. But the Blair Witch Project was the first found footage movie to rise up to that pop culture level. And the reason for that was everything that led up to it. So essentially what happened is they made this movie on a $60,000 budget, sold it at Sundance, and then the distributors, it wasn't Miramax, it was, I don't remember who it was. Anyway, poured a bunch of money into promotion and sort of post-processing, all sorts of other stuff. I think it was in the neighborhood of $150,000, $100,000 to $150,000 into the stuff afterwards. So this is the stuff that the people who bought the movie arranged. And this involves documentaries that aired before the movie came out, or mockumentaries really, and a killer website with a full ARG that you could explore. I'm going to talk about those because they're really significant. But before I do, setting aside how people felt about it, let's be real about why it made a difference. Because at $60,000, it made $248 million or something. It's just an estimate. Nobody can really know exactly the number, but it made about $248 million worldwide. And so right away, producers went, oh, what's that? And because of that, Blumhouse Pictures became a thing. Jason Blum was working at Miramax and he passed on Blair Witch at the time, and he was kicking himself ever since. So when he came across Paranormal Activity, he jumped at it and he realized, I can start making $1 million movies on a regular basis, and some of them will die and some of them will kick off and I'll make a mint. That's why we have Blumhouse Pictures today. Why does that matter? Because Blumhouse Pictures has picked up the rights to Blair Witch, and they're making a new one. I am not going to be talking about the Blair Witch sequels because they suck. But there was a fan film made after the fact. I'm going to talk about that because it was really good. It was a really good watch. So we'll get back into it. But first, let's get into why we all got so hyped over this movie. I mean, yeah, I mentioned before, reality TV wasn't a thing, and found footage movies weren't really a thing. So to see something in a movie theater that was handheld camera and moving around kind of jittery and everything was rough, it had that kind of old-timey Antrim feel. We all just sort of freaked out. Like, it just felt wrong. And everything leading up to it told us this was real. This was real. This is all real. Now, these days, you see, based on a true story, that's another way of saying this is totally made up. Based on true stories, always BS now. But at the time, well, it's not something we heard very often. And, well, there was all this corroborating evidence about all this being real. So there was a documentary that went on the Space Channel or Sci-Fi Channel called Curse of the Blair Witch, which I have somewhere in the house on VHS, but it was great. It talked about the history of the Blair Witch phenomena, talked about the people who went missing in the movie, who I'll talk about later, and just all the controversy surrounding the movie. So it like primed us for like, wow, this is a real thing, and there's something in those woods, something scary, something spooky that took these people for real. And when we see the movie, we're going to see it happen. And it really freaking roped us in. And then the website was brilliant. This, 1999, early days for movie websites. You didn't see too many of them. But the website went right into all the little details surrounding, well, where the Blair Witch came from. So it went into the legend of Ellie, how she was accused of being a witch and put on trial and killed, and then she came back and dragged a girl into the river, and oily sticks filled the river for 14 days or something, and it was, nobody could drink the water. And all these just little things. And then there's the whole legend of Rustin Parr. I should talk about the legend of Rustin Parr just a little briefly, and we're going to move on, I swear. But this was stuff that was in Curse of the Blair Witch, and he was mentioned briefly in the movie as well. And he is this figure from a while back who was living out in the woods, and he started hearing voices in his head telling him to do things, telling him to grab children and bring them up to his cabin and sacrifice them. He never knew what that voice meant. He didn't know where it came from. He didn't know who it was from, but he felt compelled to follow these directions. And after he'd killed 7 children, he was told, tomorrow go into town and tell them you're done. So that's what he did. And there's this clip from Curse of the Blair Witch that's like an inquiry, a public inquiry, asking him why he did what he did. And it's so authentic looking. It's so real looking.
How did you kill the children, Mr. Parr?
With knives.
Mr. Parr, were you alone in the killings?
Yes.
Mr. Parr, how did you get the children into the woods?
Promised them things.
It's so grounded. And, it gave you chills just thinking about the fact that this happened. So according to the legend, they burned Rustin Parr's house down. But in the movie, they seem to have found it, which is why the legend of the movie is that the police assumed a lot of what's on these recordings was a hoax. They legitimately did search the woods. They searched it for a long time. But as they were going through the footage, they assumed a lot of it was faked. And so they didn't want to release it to the public. The family sued to get the footage back, and eventually they did get it. And they went through Hacks and Films to release the project. They assumed it had to be fake, not just because of the weird, spooky things, but because they find Rustin Parr's house in the movie. No, historically, we know that house was burned down. A little crazy. And that was another thing that was on the website, but also in Curse of the Blair Witch. The way the film was found. Apparently, it was found when they were doing an excavation of an old building that had been gone for a long time, and they were digging under the foundation, and they found a duffel bag with everybody's film, but it was found in soil that had been undisturbed. under the foundation of a house that had at some point been burned down and then rebuilt. Everything was undisturbed. There was no possible way for that duffel bag to physically be in that space. And yet there it was, with footage from, 1999. So physically, it was an impossible movie. It was an impossible movie. It couldn't exist, and yet here it was. So going into the theater, we had all of this context. And we were all talking about it. We'd talk about it at work. We'd say, oh, I found something new on the website. There was another mockumentary that was made leading up to it. I think it was called Sticks and Stones. I'm going to link that one, actually, because that one's on YouTube. So I'm going to link that in the description here. Now, I could go into a lot more detail about all this foundational stuff, but I don't want to bore you. The point is that we were excited, and just we were all kind of hyped that, like, oh my God, this is real. And the family's releasing this movie for a reason, because they want to get to the bottom of what's going on, and the police have just given up on it. They can't find these people, and they want answers, so they're releasing it. So there's context, there's plausibility, and into the movie we go. And before I get into the details of the movie, I want to point out a couple of things about the way it was made. First, by today's standards, it was using pretty archaic cameras, so there's a lot of shaky cam. That's a problem for a lot of people, because honestly, it made people sick. I'm going to get into that a little bit more, because that really affected my day. I don't get motion sickness, but we'll get into that. But also the actors involved. I mean, they were just auditioned. About 1,000 people answered the audition. And when they came, they were just given the simple assignment of improvising a scene, just answering a question for a character that they hadn't even been prepared to act as. And so by proving that they could improvise, they knew that they were the right people. We got our 3 characters, and they used their real names, so Heather, Josh, and Mikey. And they get together, and all they're really given is a 35-page outline of what's going on. They're given the history of the Blair Witch. They weren't told when they were filming that any of this was fake. They actually thought that the legend of the Blair Witch was real. And the place they were going was really the actual forest where all these spooky things happened. They go to Coffin Rock at one point, where a bunch of bodies had been tied together and discovered with their entrails out and everything. And so this is the legend they heard, and they actually go to these places. And it's, for them, I mean, they must have felt like they were retracing the steps of a real legend. And that sort of made everything more consequential. They were also not told what was going to happen next. So every day they would find little bundles for themselves with a little bit of food, a little less every day to make them a little freaky, and instructions on what to do, but they were never given actual lines, which made everything a little crazier, a little more intense, as they were just reacting to each other. Just so when they start arguing, it's because they were freaked out. When they got lost in the movie, because they really did get lost. Like 3 times they got lost out in those woods. They had a GPS that was supposed to tell them where to go, but they're none of them are orienteers. So they were having a hard time out there. They finally find their way around, and they're actually led in a circle and back to the same point. They did not know that was going to happen, because none of them are great navigators. They didn't realize they were being led in a circle. So when they end up back, it's this horrible moment for them as characters. By the way, that happens all the time. People who get lost in the forest walk in a giant circle and end up back where they started all the time. It's a very normal thing to happen. There's nothing supernatural about that. So I kind of appreciated it watching it, that that happened to these characters, because yeah, if you don't really know your way around a compass, that's going to happen. Also, at one point, one of the characters isn't there in the morning. They wake up and they're missing. The other 2 actors were not told that was going to happen. He just snuck out. In the morning, when they freak out and they can't find him, they were legitimately a little freaked out. They didn't know what to make of it. So they had to maybe trust that, oh my God, I guess this is part of the production. Let's just go with it and film it. One last funny little thing. There's this iconic scene where Heather's kind of confessing her culpability in all of this. And so she got the camera, she sets it up, she turns it around. What she didn't realize she'd done, she hit the zoom button. So that ultra zoomed image of just her nose and her eye, That is an accident. But it was so perfect, so iconic. And everything about this movie constantly feels perfect because it's so real, man. Everything just felt so real. And the thing to remember about this, I guess, is just as you're watching found footage movies today, they always have a polish. They always have things cleaned up. This one, you see people quietly, silently fixing their tarps, looking around and arguing, and it's all very, very, very organic. And the only characters they're playing are themselves. So there's no forcing a personality through. There's no, I'm one of these characters. Nobody's trying to be a stereotype. There's no goddamn love triangle. Thank God. It's just three people going through some crazy, crazy crap. So let's talk a little bit about what happens in the actual movie, but I am only going to address just the bare bones, because just in case you haven't seen it, I want you to be able to experience it fresh. But just on a big overview, we get our shots of our characters getting together. They're going to license a song to be played in the car. What was it? We gotta get out of this place. They were going to license that song. They couldn't get the license. So they ended up playing some indie song. And I thought it was so much better that they did that, because I remember thinking, watching this movie, that is exactly the kind of like lame ass song that college students listen to, thinking they're so cool and alternative was the word. They go to just do the school project. It's a documentary project about the Blair Witch and the legend of the Blair Witch. And so they go around town and they interview locals. The locals are great, like so natural, fantastic. I love these interviews. And the very, very natural performances from all these people. Then they get out in the woods to trace the legend of the Blair Witch. Go to different sites. There's a Coffin Rock and there's a graveyard they wanted to hit. And while they're out there, spooky things happen. And those spooky things were carried off by the, production crew being out there playing actual audio across over the hills, and through the trees. So it's all diegetic. It's all captured by the equipment that's in there in the tent rather than applied in editing. That matters. That's huge, because you remember, audio is everything with these. Speaking of which, I've recorded this entire freaking video with the microphone a foot away. Hopefully this works out. Anyway, so everything is captured live, and the actors are reacting to whatever they come at live. It's all happening. Like, it's all really happening. Like there's a legitimacy to it rather than some kind of edit after the fact. There's no digital effects applied later on. They do a few little film effects at the end that just to show the camera shutting off. That's about as effecty as they get for the whole damn thing. So it's really fantastic. It all just kind of feels grounded in reality in a way that you hope a found footage movie will, but even to this day often misses the mark. There's just something beautiful about them pulling it off like this. And then, the ending comes around. Now, the ending, there's just a little piece of trivia about the ending. You don't see the Blair Witch, but you were supposed to. What was supposed to happen is the camera was supposed to swing left at the last second, and you just forgot. And since they're on a budget and everything, they couldn't really retake it. But then they looked at it later and thought, you know what, it's better if we don't. It's better if we don't. You were supposed to see the Blair Witch earlier in the movie, too. At one point, they had an actress out there in a white dress with a white sock or something over her head. And you were supposed to catch that for a couple of frames. It's not in the movie. They missed it. And that it just worked out better. It just worked out better because there's a groundedness. The thing that's haunting them is invisible. And when it shows itself through solid objects that's in front of them. Bundles of sticks, piles of rocks, strange goo. So I went to that theater pumped up, and I went with my wife. My wife, for some reason, decided she wanted to come with me. She doesn't like scary movies. And I'm like, are you sure you want to do this? She saw how excited I was. She wanted to be part of this moment with me. Okay, awesome. So we go together, sit in the theater. I get really good seats right in the middle, ready to go. 15 minutes in, she can't watch it anymore because she's got motion sickness. We have to go. So I caught it later. But goddamn, that was a heartbreaker. But it was instant favorite. I mean, and it definitely sparked in me a lifelong interest in found footage. And I remember, when the movie just first started and everything had that crunchy, soft sort of vision to it, all the text on screen sort of jittered a little bit, just like old film. And it said Haxan Films. And Haxan Films, I didn't know that was the company that put it together, but Haxan is an old 1922 movie that has since been voiced over by William S. Burroughs, who's like a big favorite of mine. I mean, he was, until I realized how full of shit he is.
Decaying corpses from the gallows usually made up the main course. All the witches had to show their respect for Satan by kissing his ass.
But I still love his books, The Naked Lunch and Junkie, even though it's not actually a glamorous and wonderful thing to become a heroin addict, like he seems to indicate. Things you learn. But yeah, we get out of this movie and it's like, it stayed with us. It stayed with us forever. The amazing performance, when they panicked, they panicked. When they screamed. Like these performances were flawless. And no small part of that was them being just starved. They hadn't really been fed much. And, again, this is before reality TV. So, I mean, these days we're used to watching Survivor and everybody's living on barely any food and sort of misbehaving because of it. And we're used to that. But man, at the time watching this movie, it was just everybody just letting it all out in a way that was realistic and bickering in a way that's absolutely realistic when people get hungry. It was stunning. It was sort of like it changed our whole perception of what a movie could be. And I remember, just to put it in context, all right, I remember a few years after that, Big Brother hit the airwaves, that TV show. And just on a lark, I opened their website and early in the morning one day, and there was a live stream of someone sleeping. And I remember feeling like, this is wrong, man. This is forbidden. This shouldn't be happening. I mean, these days, whatever, who cares? But at the time, it just was so freaking weird. So all of this voyeuristic look into the last moments of three people's lives. I mean, and I don't think I actually believed it at all that this wasn't just made up. Those weren't actors. I knew that, if these people really died, we wouldn't be watching a movie about it. But it was, all of the buildup was enough for me to allow myself to really suspend that disbelief. And it really felt taboo, like you were doing something wrong by watching it, but you couldn't look away. It felt forbidden. And I don't know, man, what an experience. I think it's time to get into the main question, the big question, the only question that matters. Should you watch it? I think this is one of those things that I think everybody who's a found footage fan should see this movie. But I honestly think the modern audience is going to miss what's magical about it. It's slower than most modern found footage movies. We do tight editing these days. It's definitely unpolished. Now, the unpolished part makes it better in my books, but I want to talk a little bit about who this won't appeal to first, because I do see a kind of negative reaction to people who are coming into the movie now on a regular basis. And I want to be fair about that. You have a right to kind of not like it, even though everybody loves it, thinking it's overhyped. I get why someone would think this is overhyped, because on the surface, very simple movie. Three people go into the woods, something gets them. You don't see any special effects. You don't see any monsters. And so if you need those things, then this is not for you. But if you're the kind of person who thinks that makes it better, you have to see this. Because in my book, it absolutely does make it better that you don't see a monster. It absolutely makes it better that you don't see any special effects. There are some practical effects, a very small one that I won't get into, just a little bit of gore. And that's it. So it's super, super grounded. And anybody who remembers just growing up in the 90s, you gotta see Blair Witch if you haven't already. Just for the nostalgia, Also, if you can track down Curse of the Blair Witch for the super fans, it's so worth watching, just for the background. And again, I will link the Sticks and Stones in the description here. And one other thing I'm going to link in the description here is Blair Witch Legacy. If you like the Blair Witch Project, you have to see Blair Witch Legacy. This is a fan-made film, and it very much is taking this world, the world we live in right now, and saying, oh yeah, it was a great movie. Let's go and see what the reality is of the Blair Witch. And they do a follow-up, and so you follow these filmmakers kind of following the trail of how this all came out. And I'm not going to spoil anything about it. Just go in blind. It is surprisingly good. You would think, this is just going to be lame. This is going to be, dumb. But man, it was, the Blair Witch Legacy was actually a really good time. Really good time. So I can't recommend it high enough. If you're a fan of Blair Witch, it's so much better than the sequels. Honestly, so much better than the sequels were. And it itself is what the sequel should have been. I'm also going to link 2 other videos in the description that I used for research, just that give a lot more in-depth look at the website and a lot more in-depth look at the legends around the Blair Witch. So if you want to get more into it than what I did, because I just kind of gave you an overview, they'll go into all the little nitty-gritty details. So it's scratch that itch for you. And that's about it. The next video, I'm not sure what it's going to be. I'm actually waiting on a mod from the found footage subreddit to see what they want to suggest. Having said that, there is a creator on YouTube. I'm actually going to get into an indie creator soon who's been just cranking out some great stuff. So I want to review their stuff too. And that about covers it. All right, my fellow fanatics. See you next time. Not bad, not bad.